So look at Matthew chapter 18. I'm going to read verse 1 down to verse 14. At that time, the disciples came to Jesus and asked, "Who then is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven?" Well, he called a little child to him, and he placed the child among them. And he said, "Truly I tell you, unless you change and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever takes the lowly position of this child is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. If anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it would be better for them to have a large millstone hung around their neck and to be drowned in the depths of the sea. Woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come. If your hand or your foot causes you to stumble, cut it off and throw it away. It'd be better for you to enter life maimed or crippled than to have 2 hands and 2 feet and be thrown into eternal fire. And if your eye causes you to stumble, gouge it out and throw it away. It is better for you to enter life with 1 eye than to have 2 eyes and be thrown into the fire of hell. See that you do not despise one of these little ones, for I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. What do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, will he not leave the 99 on the hills and go to look for the one that wandered off? And if he finds it, truly I tell you, he's happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish." This is the word of the Lord. There's an old saying that says, "No man is an island." You ever heard that before? I was thinking about this Friday night. We were at a Reds game, playing the Brewers. It's heartbreaking. Don't go watch the Reds. Just don't do that to yourself. We did it to ourselves. We went to a Reds game. And I'm watching the pressure. Imagine the pressure on a baseball player like that. We're down there on the field. They're up to bat. Their team is down. They've got to get a hit. And there's like tens of thousands of people watching there in the stands and on TV across the country. The pressure that's on this person, because how he performs at the plate is going to affect everyone else. And we all kind of left. Like thousands of people left kind of grumpy. Because Spencer Steer couldn't hit the ball. So we all kind of left kind of grumpy that night because this one guy didn't do his job. Now, a lot of times we feel like that's completely different from the life that we're living. We feel like I'm living a life like it doesn't really matter. I mean, what I do, nobody's watching, doesn't affect anybody, whether I succeed or whether I fail. Doesn't really have any influence on anybody. What that old philosopher a long time ago, when he said no man is an island, what he was saying is, in a way, you're all like that guy that's up to bat. There's way more hanging on your performance than you think there is. You're having influence on way more people than you think you're having an influence on. And your life is counting for more than you think it is. The question is, are you aware of it, and what kind of an influence are you having? And Jesus talks about that here. In this passage we read, I don't know if you noticed, it came up several times. Jesus talks about little ones. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Who are these little ones that Jesus is talking about? Here's what's important. Jesus says, I'm watching how you treat these little ones. I'm watching the kind of influence that you have on them. And let me tell you, you mess with these little ones and you cause them to stumble, it would be better for you to have a large millstone hung around your neck and be drowned in the depths of the ocean than to have done such a foolish thing. Because who are these people? Let's talk about it. Look at verse number 3. Jesus said, I tell you the truth. He's talking to his disciples. Unless you change and become like little children, you're never going to enter the kingdom of heaven. Now, just the first part of that verse is so shocking because if you ask most people in America, hey, what do you have to do to go to God's wonderful kingdom? They say, well, nothing. I mean, God loves everybody. It's just, you just got to keep doing you. Be true to yourself. I mean, probably don't kill anybody. That'd probably be good. Don't kill anybody. Don't be a Nazi. And you're probably going to go to heaven. Jesus says, whoa. Unless you change, you're not getting in. Now, we've been talking about this here at King's Church since the beginning of the year. What kind of change is Jesus talking about? Well, he tells us here in a very short way. You got to change and become like little children. And to show him, he brought a little child, and he said, maybe we could do that today, bring a little child and set him up here. You got to change. You're not like this child, but you got to be like this child, or you're not going to get in on what God is doing. And all of God's wonderful blessings will not be for you. And what does he mean by that as children? Well, the thing about children they are the exact opposite of a great self-reliant person. What do you think when you see a kid who's got something? Do you think, wow, that kid must have worked really hard to get that thing? Must have worked a lot of hours to save up the money to buy that iPad he's playing on. No. You see a kid with anything, what do you assume? Someone gave it to him, right? They got clothes, you assume someone gave it to him. You see kids today with a donut, you're assuming they didn't stop by Milton's on their way here. You're assuming that someone gave them that donut, right? Everything that a kid has, they get it from relying. A small child has everything they have because of relying on others. So check this out. The things that you see a child have are a measure of what? Of who they're with. Of who they're with. You see a kid wearing very expensive clothes, carrying the newest phone, right? What do you know? Okay, kid's got some rich people in his life, and that's why he's got all this stuff, right? That's why he's got all these toys, because he's the kind of people that he's got in his life. And so when Jesus says here, a lot of people read what Jesus says, like, oh, you got to be like children. Like, okay, I'm going to try to be a super humble person just like a child. You're not saved by being a humble person. You're not going to go to heaven because you're a humble person. Just because you're like because that's like the polite, courteous thing to do is to be humble, not to go around bragging about yourself all the time. Like, you should be humble. You're not saved by just being a humble person like a child. You're saved by being a humble person who's with Jesus. And if your humility doesn't take you to Jesus, it's not worth anything. See, it's because we're just like little children, totally dependent, and I'm with Jesus, and he is going to give me everything that I need. We're totally helpless. We cast ourselves upon his grace. And just to give you a little hint, later on we got 3 people going to be baptized today. It's kind of a weird thing that we do as Christians. We're going to get in this little pool over here. It's not for swimming. It's not for bathing. It's for baptizing. It's like, what's that even for? But notice that we don't baptize ourselves. Right, that might make sense if Declan, okay, Declan, you get up here, you're just going to get in the pool and just baptize yourself. We don't do that. Someone gives you baptism. Someone baptizes you. Now, what's that saying? It means we're treating you like, well, we're going to treat Declan. Now, Declan's bigger than me, but we're going to treat him like a child. We baptize him. In the same way, children don't do for themselves. Children freely receive. They don't bathe themselves. They don't dress themselves. They don't feed themselves. They don't protect themselves. They don't teach themselves. Someone has to do for them. And when you get baptized, what you're saying is, I can't do for myself. I need Jesus to do for me. I need him to cleanse me. Everything I need, it comes from him. Now, I say modern people, we don't like this very much. That's why Jesus says you got to change. You're not like that. That's not our default mindset. Our default mindset is, I'm too big for Jesus. Now, but just be honest, a lot of people in Franklin and Middletown, in Ohio, and America generally, what's going on? They're too big for Jesus. I don't need him to take care of me. I'll take care of myself. Thank you very much. Well, and there's also an attitude that people have about Christianity. We don't get uncomfortable with this. We sing this song about Jesus is strong and kind, and I'm weak and I'm scared and I can go to Jesus. And you're sitting there hearing all that like, not me. I ain't weak. I ain't scared, so I guess I don't need to go to Jesus. And there's an idea that if we acknowledge how broken and lost we are in our sin and how completely we need his grace, that somehow that lowers us and makes us smaller. My friend, it does not. Listen to this prayer. This is somebody from history. See if you can guess who it was who prayed this prayer. He kept a journal and he wrote it down. Almighty God, most merciful Father, I acknowledge and confess my guilt in the weak and imperfect performance of my duties today. I have called on you for pardon and forgiveness of my sins. Let me live according to those holy rules that you have commanded in your word. Direct me to the true object, Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world. See that? He's saying, I failed today. I've asked you to forgive me of my sins. I'm so weak, I cast myself upon you. You're like, yeah, that sounds like a loser. That's George Washington. So let me tell you, being weak and completely dependent upon Christ, does that mean that you can't, dominate? No, you can and you should. In this world, you can go out there, you can dominate academically, athletically, politically, professionally. Go out there and dominate. When Declan and Corinne and Ellie, they get baptized today, we're not saying you're just like weak children, and so the rest of your life we want you to live like a weak loser. No. You can go out there and dominate, and we want you to go out there and dominate, but who are you before God? At the end of the day, just like George Washington, when you stand before God, who are you? You say, Almighty God, I am just a poor child, completely dependent on your grace. So when we say the little ones here, it doesn't just mean children. Jesus is using children and their mindset as an example of humble Christians. And this, calling us children, shows two things. First of all, it shows, who do you think you are? When you get baptized, and every Christian here, we've been baptized. Why do we get baptized? We're saying, this is who I am. I need Jesus to do for me. I'm weak. I need his grace, so I'm baptized. Right? So that shows who we are. I'm a little one. I'm one of his little ones. Doesn't matter how long you've been a Christian. Doesn't matter how big and bad and how much you dominate in your life and in the world. You're just one of his little ones. The other thing it shows, I think it shows his affection for us. Say, who are we to God? We're his little ones. That's the kind of care, the tender affection that he has for us. Notice he says in verse 5. Look at verse 5 there. Whoever welcomes one such child in my name welcomes me. Jesus says, you welcome one of these little humble ones that trust in me, you're welcoming me. Jesus is tied up, he's bound up, inextricably intertwined with his people. And he says, I am watching very carefully how you treat my little humble Christians. Okay? And you may be a weak Christian, you may be a new Christian, you may be a very immature Christian. We have people getting baptized today. You get baptized because you're just starting out on your Christian journey. You're just starting out. And you may feel, guys getting baptized today, you may feel very weak and like, I'm not sure how good of a Christian I'm going to be. I'm not sure if I'm ready to do this. I'm not sure if I'm ready to live a life faithful and following Jesus. Jesus says, I'm watching you. I'm watching out for you. You're my little one. And I will make sure that anyone who mistreats you is going to have to answer to me. That's what he says. And so what should we do? Verse 5, whoever welcomes one such child. So when we see somebody who's a humble one before God, who's been baptized, a follower of Jesus, what should our response be? Welcome. We want to welcome them. Now, what's it mean to welcome somebody? Well, to welcome them means you treat them as somebody that's worth your respect, your notice, and your care. So these people getting baptized today, as a church, what should our commitment to them be? I'm on your side. I want to help you. I want to serve you. I want to bless you. It's a wonderful place where in another book of the Bible that tells about Jesus talking like this, in the Gospel of Mark. And there, it's interesting, Mark says that Jesus said this, if anyone gives one of these little ones a cup of water in my name, they will not miss out on their reward. So just here, Jesus says, whoever welcomes them. There he says, listen, even if I don't have that much I can do. I don't have that much I feel like I can serve these who are being baptized today or my fellow Christians. I don't have that much I feel like I can help them. Remember, we're talking about influencing one another. I have that much I can influence or help them or serve them. Jesus says, if you see any need that they have, even a cup of water that they need, they're thirsty, the least you can do is to give them a cup of water. Jesus says, I'll see that. And that will receive a great reward indeed. And that means Christians, brothers and sisters in Christ, we should treasure every opportunity that we have to serve lowly, humble Christians. And that's one of the things the church is about. One of the reasons I like coming to church is because when I come to church, there's going to be a bunch of Christians here. There's opportunities for me to serve. And Jesus says, when you serve my people, I'm going to reward you. You're not going to miss out. So someone who says, well, I'm not sure I want to go to church, is missing out. You're missing out on the opportunities to discover Christians. And let's just tell you, just in the life of a church, we find out all sorts of ways that we need each other's help, don't we? Little things that we need, help that we need, service that we need, prayer that we need, encouragement that we need. And Jesus is watching how we treat his little ones. Now, we want to look with emphasis, though, on verse 6, because it's the opposite. So Jesus says, what should you do to my little ones? Being baptized today, brothers and sisters, welcome them. What's the opposite of that? Verse 6, if anyone causes one of these little ones, those who believe in me, to stumble, it'd be better for them to have that large millstone hung around their neck cast into the sea to drown. To cause them to stumble. Jesus says, you better not cause them to stumble. Now here, cause them to stumble, it doesn't mean like, Declan's coming up to be baptized today and you stick your foot out to trip him on the way. It's not that kind of a stumble. It's talking about a stumble of the heart. To cause them to go off the rails. To cause them to head in a wrong direction. See, when you're a Christian, you're starting out on a journey. And that journey's got a destination. You're trying to reach that destination. That destination is the kingdom of God, to be forever with him and his people in glory and blessing. That's where I'm heading. And Jesus says, if you dare do anything that would cause them to not reach that destination, woe is you. Woe is you, he says. So we want to make sure those who are being baptized today, what's our goal? We want you to stay with Jesus. And we want to help you stay on with Jesus. And now there's going to be plenty of influences. We're going to talk about some of them in a minute. There's plenty of influences in the world that want to do their best to keep you from sticking with Jesus. And that's what Jesus is talking about here. Now, how might we cause somebody to stumble? Again, not by sticking out our foot and tripping them. How might we cause them to stumble? Humble, lowly Christians in our church. Let me point this out too before we answer that question. Notice that children are also, especially children that follow Jesus. This passage applies to them. Children are little ones in two ways, right? They're physically and just like mentally, they're little ones. And they're little ones because they're humble people following Jesus. So we could say children who are Christians. Today we have 3 young people who are being baptized. They're the littlest of the little ones. And that means Jesus' words here go double for them. They go double for them. Now, how might we cause them to stumble, lead them astray? By our words, the things we say to them. By our example. And by the way we treat them. By the way, just so you know, that's the influence you're having on your family too. What kind of influence are you having on your family? Your brothers and sisters, your parents, your children, your spouse. Those 3, what are you saying? What's your example that you're setting? And how are you treating them? That's what it boils down to, those 3 things. What are you saying? What are you saying to them? What are you doing to them? And what are you doing in front of them? Your example for them. And Jesus says, be very careful how you treat my little ones, especially at the start of their journey. Now, let me tell you, lowly Christians, because we're humble, there shouldn't really be a lot of know-it-all Christians. Or Christians who think that they're strong. It's kind of like an oxymoron. Like, if you're really a Christian, the one thing that you should know about yourself is, I don't got it all figured out. That I'm not strong, that I need. I'm a little one, I'm humble, I'm dependent on God, right? That should be your starting point. And you know what that means? It means that Christians are actually very vulnerable, especially younger, new Christians are very vulnerable. Because they're humble enough to listen. Some people got a skull made out of titanium that's an inch thick, and it doesn't matter what you say to them, it doesn't sink in, right? But Christians are not by default like that. We're people that are like, yeah, teach me. I want to hear. So we're vulnerable, or we're susceptible to being taught. We are thus easily corrupted, easily deceived, easily tempted, easily discouraged, and easily abused. Okay? And so this is a part of our natural development. Now, if you're a Christian, some of us have been Christians for 10, 20, 30, 40 years, you're probably not quite as vulnerable. You've been around for a little bit, you've seen some stuff, you've heard some lies, you've seen some of the tricks. And so you're like, yeah, you're not going to cause me to stumble that easy. Nice try. You're not going to cause me to stumble today, right? But listen, being a young Christian, that's like a normal part of being a young Christian. When you're just starting out in your journey following Christ, that's like a normal thing, to be very susceptible and be very vulnerable. It's a normal part of your Christian development. And you can be worse things. There's worse things to be than a naive, innocent Christian. But nobody should make that their aim. So, Jesus saves. These are really some of the strongest words Jesus uses in the Bible. I know there's like a popular image of Jesus as a guy, like an impossibly nice guy who just walked around and just was like smiling all the time. Jesus was all just sunshine and roses all the time. And Jesus said some harsh things. Jesus talked about tying a millstone around somebody's neck and drowning them in the ocean. That's a pretty hardcore thing to say. Now, what does it mean? I think it's interesting. Jesus saves his strong words for this, and it connects to a strong feeling that we all have. There's a lot of dads here today. Dads, how do we feel when we hear about the evils of child abuse? When you hear about somebody who's abused an innocent child, doesn't that make every fiber of John Wick that's inside you just sort of like boil to the surface and you're ready to go to war and kill some fools over that? Right? We feel that. And Jesus says, that feeling that you have when you hear about the evils of child abuse, guess what you should feel when you see someone causing Christians to wander away. Little, humble, innocent, repentant Christians who are following Jesus. Someone gets in there and causes them to stumble. Jesus says that's about how evil it is. Now he uses this millstone thing. What does that mean, to tie a millstone? Most of us don't have millstones in our home anymore, right? When I was a kid, if you watch a cartoon, and it's, Wile E. Coyote and Roadrunner, you're trying to drop something heavy on somebody. What's the comically heavy object in cartoons, right? It's an anvil, it's your safe, your piano, right? Those are the cartoon heavy objects. Back then they didn't have any of those things. Back then it was a millstone. That was your comically heavy object that was laying around. And Jesus says, you cause one of my little ones to stumble, well then I think it'd be better for you to have that happen to you. Now, what does that mean? I'm going to tell you two things I think it means. The first thing is, what do you think is the survivability of being chucked into the ocean with a millstone tied around your neck? Like, I'm a good swimmer. I'm like an Olympic swimmer. It's like, yeah, but you got a millstone tied around your neck, so it's not going to go real good. You people going to dive in after you. No, you got a millstone tied around your neck. It's over. When Jesus says it would be better to do that, what he says is you have a better chance of surviving that. You have a better chance of surviving the millstone diving than you have of getting away scot-free with causing my little ones to stumble. In other words, Jesus says, I will not ignore it. It will not be forgotten. It will not pass. It's never forgotten. There will be no escape for that. And I think it means a second thing, too. What's sort of the horror of dying in that way? I mean, Jesus could have said dying in any other ways, but it'd be better for you to die, in any other random way. But he says this way, what's particularly horrible about a death like that? It's that you're sinking down, 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 further and further, past the point of no return, to a level of profound horror. It's a truly terrible, in other words, it's a way of saying you're sinking down into the lowest of hells. Now, what's a way we say it today? Today we talk about someone does something evil, we say, there's a special place in hell for a person like that. That's what Jesus is saying here. Cause my little ones to stumble, it's a special place in hell for you. There's a lower hell than you can imagine that's waiting for someone who commits such an atrocity. So, Jesus says this is the lowest of punishments, the most profound of judgment that's coming. Okay? Now let's just kind of read through the next verses here. Verse 7. Jesus says, woe to the world because of the things that cause people to stumble. Such things must come, but woe to the person through whom they come. Now here's what Jesus is saying. Our world is full of stumbling. This is a stumbling stone kind of a world. Everywhere you go, there's influences that make it difficult for you to reach that end of the journey. Guys, you get baptized today, there's all sorts of obstacles that make it very difficult for you to reach the end of your journey, which is eternal blessedness with Christ. All kinds of obstacles. And Jesus says here, such things must come. What that might mean is God is letting evil have its day. God is letting evil have its day. He is not currently sending out his angels into every street and alley of our world, kicking down our doors and forcing us to stop in our evil behavior. Let me tell you, if you want to have a bad influence on your kids, if you want to have a bad influence on other Christians, there's a good chance that God will let you do it right now. That's part of what he's letting you have the freedom to do what you want to do. He says, such things must come. That's part of God's plan right now. Part of God's plan is let evil have a long leash. But woe to the person through whom they come. In other words, he's saying, yes, I'm letting evil have its day. I'm letting evil run amok in the streets of America and around the world. But I'm taking notes. I'm taking notes. It's all accounted for. There's coming a judgment day. I'll sort it all out later. The things that if you have chosen, hey, I don't care what my influence is on other people. I don't care if I cause other people to stumble. I'm going to live life the way I want to live. I'm going to say what I want to say, do what I want to do. Jesus says, I'll be watching. And woe to the person through whom those offenses come. How awful a fate awaits. Now let me just give you a few examples of these. I want to tell you, because this is a real thing. This is a real thing. There really are stumbling stones in our world, and especially for those who are being baptized today, but for all of us as lowly Christians who are following Jesus, these are the kinds of things that we need to watch out for. There are people causing lowly Christians to stumble today. I'm going to tell you 6 ways, real quick, and they start with D. First of all, they want to disorient you. They call good evil and evil good. They say, oh, what's the difference? That's all. You think this is a bad action? I don't think it's such a bad action. So there's things, let me tell you, there's things that would cause your grandparents to blush. There's things that your grandparents would not name, would not mention in good company that are taught in our classrooms. Taught in our classrooms in this country today. And Christians, we're going to watch out for them. Those who are calling good evil and evil good. Second, there are those who lead Christians to stumble by their dissent from the historic teaching of Christianity. They kind of make up their own version. We call it heresy in Christianity. They're like taking like Christianity and basically like mixing it all up. They put it in a blender, and what pops out, they're like, yeah, this is Christianity too. See, it kind of tastes like it. It's like, yeah, but it's not it at all. It's not it at all. It's a poisonous substitute. There's plenty of people like that who are by their dissent. People like Mormonism, Jehovah's Witnesses. They're very common things in our culture, in our country, that have taken Christianity and turned it into some kind of foreign substance. And who do they prey on? I don't know if you know this. You know who those people prey on? They don't prey on people who aren't Christians. They prey on people who are following Jesus. They want you to be a person who's following Jesus so they can lead you away and cause you to stumble. Third, there are those who want to inspire you with doubt. And they want to tell you that actually everybody was wrong about Jesus. And this whole idea of following Jesus is, it's not really important at all. Today we hear people that say, I used to follow Jesus, but I deconstructed my faith. And I went back and I realized everything I believed was a bunch of junk and I don't believe it anymore. And that's why I'm starting a podcast to tell everybody else that they should follow me and also. See, they want to jump ship and not follow Jesus anymore, but that's not enough for them. They want you to jump ship and follow them too, to make them feel better about themselves. Don't listen to it. Don't listen to it. There's YouTubers, influencers, podcasters, all sorts of people that are out there selling this idea of betraying Christ. That's a millstone. There's a special place in hell, Jesus says, for people that are using their voice to try to lead people to stumble in their journey of following Christ. And then, let me tell you another one. Disgust. There's those who cause Christians to stumble by disgusting them. We've all met them. People who are like, I'm a Christian. I follow Jesus. You're like, really? So why are you the nastiest person I've ever met in my life? Whatever you are and whatever you have, I don't want to be any part of it. There are many people in Middletown and Franklin this morning that do not go to church. And they say, I don't go to church because I went to church one time. There's a bunch of hypocrites and people, the way they treated me. I'm not saying they're always right when they say that. Sometimes that's just an excuse. But there really are people that have had very terrible excuses by somebody who claimed to be a Christian. But they weren't a Christian. They were just there to cause you to stumble. Then there's those who discourage you. There's all kinds of ways. This is a big one. And there's all kinds of ways to discourage people. Okay, you can just be nasty to them and not you fail to encourage them. You can also discourage them by piling burdens on them, right? To tell them they've got to do all this stuff that Jesus never said they had to do. Well, you better make sure you're doing this. Better make sure you're doing that. If you're going to be part of our church, we want you doing A, B, and C, and X, Y, and Z. We want you doing all these things. You're going to be part of our church. I know Jesus never said it, but that's really what we expect of you. And the burden gets so heavy that eventually causes people to stumble. And finally, there are those who cause people to stumble by diluting the faith. What I mean by that is, you can take something like Christianity or the church, you can substitute it with an artificial, non-nutritious sort of a substitute. You can switch it out. And there are things that, there's places around here that call themselves churches. And what I would say they are is they're sort of like, they're like that Beyond Meat, that fake burger thing. You know what I'm talking about? Where they're like, this is a burger. It's like, I don't think so. You can eat. I'm not eating that. You can eat that. That's cooked up in a lab, and they want to tell you it's a hamburger. I see some churches sometimes, I'm like, that's what that is. That's a fake hamburger. That's not the real thing. That's a nutritionless substitute. And listen, God's got a plan for all of us, and many of you, one day you'll move somewhere else, and you'll have to find a church to go to somewhere else. And Declan's going off to school, and he'll have to find a place to worship there. As you're looking for church, remember that. Remember that there are those who are diluting the Christian faith and making it a place that has none of the nutrition of the Christian life. So these are all different ways you might lead Christians to stumble that are active in our world today. But look what Jesus says in verse 10. Let's skip down to verse 10. He says, see that you do not despise one of these little ones. That word despise doesn't mean make sure you don't hate them. Despise is an old word that means something like to think little of, to look down on, to treat as of no importance. So Jesus says, make sure that you never in your mind think it doesn't matter how you treat people. Some of you got Christians in your life. Maybe you're a Christian yourself, but you've got children that are following Jesus or claim to be Christians. You've got siblings or you have a spouse that's claiming to follow Jesus. And the way you're living and talking and the example you're setting is making it harder for them to follow Jesus and be faithful to him. Jesus says, why don't you stop despising my little ones? Why don't you treat them with a little bit of respect? Why don't you recognize that I'm doing something in their life and you're responsible for how you treat them? Look what he says. Verse 10. I tell you that their angels in heaven always see the face of my Father in heaven. Now, if anybody here today showed up at church with a Secret Service detail, we would be very impressed. If you came in here and you had a bunch of Secret Service guys hanging out, watching over you, we would all be impressed. Like, wow, who is this person? Got the Secret Service. They've got a special bodyguard here to watch them. Jesus says, my little ones have an angelic bodyguard that watches over them. Little ones, those of us who are following Jesus Christ, I got good news for you. You have an angelic bodyguard, and there's nothing that's going to happen to you that Jesus isn't going to know about. And Jesus says, so you better be real careful how you treat. I suggest that you be very careful how you treat my little ones, how you treat Christians in this world, because their angels have been sent by God to come and to protect them. And then finally, Jesus gives them this little parable. Maybe this is familiar to you, verse 12 to 14. Jesus says, what do you think? If a man owns 100 sheep and one of them wanders away, won't he leave the 99 in the hills to go look for that one that wandered off? And he finds it. I tell you, he's happier about that one sheep than about the 99 that did not wander off. Okay, what's the point? Verse 14. In the same way, your Father in heaven is not willing that any of these little ones should perish. Are there Christians out there that are so little, so unimportant, that whether or not they make it to the end of their journey is not really a big deal to God? No, there's not. He says, I am watching over every single one of them. Those of you who are being baptized today, he's got your name, and he cares that you make it to the end of your journey. What an encouragement for us who are Christians, and what a warning to those who would cause these little ones to stumble. God is so committed to us making it to the end of our journey. But I don't know about you, but we may start to panic a little bit because, like Jesus says there in verse 7, woe to the world, because it's such a stumbling stone kind of a world. He looks at the world and he says, boy, a world like this, woe to anybody who lives there. That's a nice thing that Jesus said. Jesus had experience just like us. Jesus was the eternal Son of God, but he had about 30 years of experience living in our world, and he said, boy, I feel bad for anybody who lives here. That's what he said. Woe to the world. Our lot is hard and bitter and unenviable because our way to the end of our journey is littered with stumbling stones. Jesus says, woe to all who must pass this way. So Jesus says, woe to the world, and we agree. So how are we going to make it to the end of the journey? This is the great news. We see there in that little parable, Jesus says, if he's missing one of those sheep, he's going to leave the 99 behind, and he's going to go and look for it. He won't rest until he's found that sheep number 100 that got lost. He's not going to rest until he finds sheep number 100. Friend, what do you think Jesus came to do? He came to be that shepherd that's out there beating the bushes. that's walking through this stumbling stone world, trying to track down his lost sheep. Jesus says, I've come to seek and to save my lost sheep. That's what he had come to do. In a world that causes us to stumble, we live in a world that wants to do everything in its power. There's so many obstacles, it seems totally impossible that we would ever arrive at the end of our journey, eternal blessedness with God. He says here, you see, we need each other to get to the end of that journey. You see how this is part of God's plan. And part of his plan is that he would use one another, that we use each other, we encourage each other, serve one another, pray for one another, help each other along and help each other get to the end of the journey. But at the very beginning, there wasn't anybody to help anybody. There was 0 people that were making it to the end of the journey until Jesus came. Until Jesus came. And he walked through this world alone. He walked alone. There was no one to help him, no one to encourage him, to support him, to pray for him, to help him, to serve him so he could get to the end. He walked alone. And he died alone on the cross. So much so, remember what Mark said? Anybody even just gives a cup of water to one of my thirsty little ones. Just that kind of a service. That's going to have a reward. Jesus, on his way on the cross, he said, I thirst. And there was no one to serve him. There was no one to care for him. He was alone. And he died. That wasn't the end of the story, of course. Jesus overcame all of that. And in his rising from the dead, he founded a new humanity. Jesus started a new family. And he began to add us as his younger brothers and sisters, to add us into the family. And we will never be alone the way he was. And he sends us to help one another along, and through us, he helps us on our journey to the end. He's bringing us to the very end. He's the shepherd that's come to seek us out and to bring us home. So, will he let his little ones perish? No, he will not. He oversees all things on our behalf. Okay? So, friends, beware. First of all, Christians, little ones, beware. You're living in a stumbling stone kind of a world. That means be so careful. Be so careful. Realize that there are voices out there by their disorientation, their dissent, their doubt, etc., that want to cause you to stumble. Be ready for it. Watch out for that. Parents, be real cautious that we don't let our little ones at home, that we don't be the cause of making them stumble. What kind of influence are we having on our kids? One day, will our children arrive at the end of the journey, walk through the gates into the kingdom, into eternal blessing with God, and they say, you know why I'm here? I'm here in part because my mom and my dad had an influence on me. With their words, by their example, by the way they treated me. They were used by Christ to serve me. So I didn't stumble. They held my hand and they walked me all the way to the end. Or will our kids reach there and say, I got here, but without any of their help, that's for sure. Or will they get there and they say, they were trying to cause me to stumble the whole time. Again and again, trying to pull me away from Christ, trying to push me down. It's only by God's grace that I made it. Or will we welcome them and cause them to reach the end? As a church, we want to do the same thing. We want our church, King's Church, we want our church to be a place where our children are held up and supported and led along the path all the way to the very end, so that we have had that right influence on them. Let this also be a caution to all of us to not lightly take up the role of teacher, as is very common. We have an epidemic of unqualified teachers, partly because of social media. We have an epidemic of unqualified teachers in our country. I don't mean the ones in the schools, I mean the ones in the churches. An epidemic of unqualified leadership and teachers. And this passage is a caution, like, man, you better be real careful before you take it upon yourself to be an influence on his little ones. Christian, let's strive for strength and for growth. Okay, let's strive to, as I'm a little one, that's right, I'm very susceptible, I'm very weak, but I'm going to get strong so I don't stumble so easily. Okay. Think about your influence on others. And remember, as Christians, we say, why do I want to be at church? The reason I want to be at church is like that's the place where they're giving out the cold water. I want to get there so they give me the water to help me on the journey. Not only that, when I'm doing pretty good, I'm coming to church so I can give the water. I can find ways to serve other people and help them on their journey. So that's what we're striving for. That's what we're striving for. Now, if you're not a Christian, you're not a follower of Jesus, I think this passage also gives you a lot to think about. You're like, I haven't really had a place for God in my life. I haven't really been following Jesus or whatever. Maybe you've been to church before, maybe you haven't. You're like, that's not really, it's not really my thing. I hope you hear this passage today and realize, that's me. I'm a lost sheep. I'm a lost sheep. I'm weak in this world, and I need him. Wouldn't it be great to have a shepherd like him who would be so committed to you to come after you like that? Wouldn't it be so great to have someone who sends his angels to watch over you every day? Wouldn't it be great to have somebody say, I'm watching how everybody in your life treats you, and I'm going to make sure that they help you on your journey? It'd be a wonderful, wonderful thing to have. One of my, there's a movie that I was watching with my kids the other day. Remember the Annie movie? I know they've made like 150 of them now since then. Remember the movie Annie? It was like a musical. The one that I watched when I was a kid. I don't know what they've got these days, but the good old-fashioned one, the little red-headed Annie there, I want to think about this idea of welcoming here, where Jesus says, I want you to welcome my little ones in my name. Serve them. In the movie Annie, of course, about this little orphan girl, lives in a terrible orphanage, lives a terrible life. No one cares about her. She's alone. Ain't no one taking care of her. And she gets this opportunity to go live at the Warbucks mansion, right? And she's picked up and she's taken to the Warbucks mansion. And she gets there and, she's so excited to be there. She's not in that terrible orphanage anymore. And the lady, I don't remember her name, she says, Annie, what do you want to do first here at the great Warbucks mansion? She says, well, I'll probably start on the floors, and then I'll do the windows, and then I'll work. And the lady realizes, what do you think? You think you're here to work? You think we brought you here to serve? She says, Annie, you don't have to do any of that stuff. You don't have to clean and serve here. You don't have to do any cleaning while you're here. And Annie says, I don't? How am I going to earn my keep? And the lady responds, oh, you're our guest, Annie. And of course, if you know the end of the story, Annie is adopted. She becomes more than a guest. She becomes the daughter in the family. She becomes the child of the family. But Annie says, I don't? How am I going to earn my keep? And then they sing this great song, I think I'm going to like it here. And the song is great because the song is all about how everybody's going to serve Annie. It tells all these different servants, Cecile, Mrs. Greer, Annette, Drake, Mrs. Pugh. And the song says, this person's going to help you like this. This person's going to help you like this. This person's going to pick out your clothes. This person's going to get your bath ready. This person's going to feed you. All these people are here to serve you and to take care of you, Annie. And Annie says, I think I'm going to like it here. And the last line of the song is all the cast, they all sing together, welcome, welcome. Jesus here, he says, you know what I've designed you for, what I've designed the church to be, what you're supposed to be part of? To be welcomed. And when you join the Church of Jesus Christ, you're baptized today as Declan and Corinne and Ellie are going to be baptized. What's going on? We're welcoming. We're saying we're going to welcome. We're all here to serve you. We're all here to work for you, to help you, to encourage you, to strengthen you. And what's even greater than all that, God, with all of his almighty power, the creator of heaven and earth, is using all of his power to serve the likes of you and me. Let's pray together.